Thank you for coming out on a hot Saturday, June evening for Poets and Poetry. Give yourselves a hand. Thank you. Can we make some noise for DJ Roisin in the house? Yeah. So welcome to the space. My name is Baofi, Program Director of Events and Awards here at the Loft Literary Center. Before we get started, I'm just going to make a few comments before I turn it over to Mooks, who is both the star and the curator of this evening's event and will also MC. You know, Southeast Asian people, I got like 5 things at once you got to do. I was going to say, oh, you all should come sit in the front, but there's going to be some video poems today anyway, so y'all are good. Just a couple quick housekeeping things. Please turn off any beeping devices you may have. Bathrooms are back there, you know, in that direction on the that end of the building. I want to thank Browntown for taking video, Josh for doing sound, and usually Anna does photos. I'm sorry, what's your name? Jason is officially doing photos for us. Thank you, Jason. And thank you all for being here. Also, thanks to program manager Marian Gomez and also our volunteer, Sarah. Volunteer means work for free. We always appreciate that. You know, we're artists, you know, like, you know, we're trying to do our best to let artists be artists up here. Thank you so much for coming. You are in a building called Open Book. Open Book is its own nonprofit entity. The Loft Literary Center, which I work for, is one of the tenants of this building. We believe that this building is one of its only, might be the only type of its kind in the nation, entirely devoted to nonprofit, independent literary arts. On the 3rd floor is Milkweed Editions. On the 2nd floor is the Loft Literary Center. On the 1st floor is Minnesota Center for the Book Arts. The Loft, which administers this program, started over 40 years ago in Dinkytown above a bookstore. The owner of that bookstore said, you know, wouldn't it be great if we cut a hole in the ceiling and built some stairs up to that loft apartment, and writers could go up there and meet and have workshops and chat and all of that. Now, 40 years later, we're one of the nation's most comprehensive literary arts nonprofits. We offer classes for all ages and types. We have events like this, spoken word events. Equilibrium, which this is a part of, has been running for 15 years. We have grants, fellowships, all types of things. Check us out on www.loft.org. I'm only going to tell you about a couple of things we're really excited about. So next year it's 2018. So in the spring of 2019, the Loft will be organizing Minnesota's first ever National Book Festival. It's crazy, right? You would think that Minnesota would have a national book festival for now, but we haven't. We've had local Minnesota book festivals and Twin Cities book festivals, but this will be a national one. We're super excited. It's called Wordplay. And we're going to obviously, hopefully, do the typical bringing in famous authors to talk about their new books, all that type of stuff. We all love that. But also, like, we're going to try to think up like interesting stuff, like, you know, let's take a canoe with this weirdo author and, you know, see what happens. Well, maybe not, because there's probably liability and stuff happening there. But you hear what I'm saying. We're going to try to think outside of the box, is what I'm saying. And then the other thing I'll talk about before I hand it over to Mooks is that we're also debuting a mentorship program for Indigenous and writers of color to write children's books, middle grade and young adult. So that's open to Minnesota writers of Indigenous who are Indigenous and writers of color. You apply. Up to 12 writers will be selected to work in a mentorship program with a bunch of different writers of colors and allies, everything from the craft of writing to the business of children's books. We should be going live with that next week. So those of you who are writers of color and Indigenous writers, think about applying. You get a $500 stipend. Why are we even paying you? Why are we paying you to take advantage of this dope-ass opportunity? I don't even understand, but that's just the way it is. But check that out. That opportunity will be open next week. Please check it out. And so with that, I'm going to introduce to you the curator and artist for this evening. So we all know Mooks. I'm not going to read her bio because you can read for yourself. But what you should know about MOOCs is that this evening is all here because of the Spoken Word Immersion Fellowship Program, of which MOOCs is a fellow. And it's a national contest for Indigenous and writers of color spoken word artists to do a year-long spoken word immersion project of their choice, culminating in a final performance here at the Loft Literary Center. And MOOCs won over a lot of distinguished poets who were trying to get this pot of money and opportunity. And, the best of the best in the nation apply for this. And our very own MOOCs is one of the winners. And she's here. And she also curated this evening's event, invited the artists and all of that. And I'm just so, I'm not a judge. I just do the paperwork. But whenever I see like someone whose work I really respect pop up in that final list of names the judges gives me, it always makes me very happy. And I was very happy to see Mooks receive this fellowship. And her project is, which she'll talk about a little bit, is amazing. So please welcome to the stage, Mooks.
Thank you, Bao. I have nothing prepared. I just thought that it's enough that I just show up and be myself. But I do want to say thank you to the Loft for this fellowship. I spent the past year, basically my project was called the Lao Survivors Poetry Project. And what I wanted to do and have been doing and will continue doing is that I've been interviewing survivors of the secret war in the Vietnam War who identify as ethnic Lao. And after spending some time with them and hearing their stories, I would then go back home and then write poems. And sometimes the poems were difficult to come through. Sometimes they were pretty easy. And sometimes it would take me weeks to even muster up the courage to write after hearing their stories. And so the idea, too, was to take those poems and choose several of them and turn them into video poems. Because I know that, my elders, my aunties, and my uncles are already on YouTube watching Thai dramas. And so it's easier to get them to click on a link than to read your chapbook, Because they'll buy your chapbook, but they won't read it. It's just going to be like buy the telephone book. Anyway, so I collaborated with several Asian American women filmmakers, and I gave them, and it was a complete collaboration, I gave them full autonomy in how they viewed what they saw, how they saw the words come to life, and for them to create visually their poem, our poem. So that's the project. But I'm excited also because I invited my friends to come hang out with me tonight. We are also the national co-chairs of the Lao American Writers Summit. And the last time that we read together here was in 2010, when we had our first Lao American Writers Summit here. Yeah, and so it's good to read again together 8 years later. And to see how we have grown so much together. With all that said, I do want to invite my mentor, Brian Talwara, up to the stage. And I'm also not going to read Brian's bio because I'm lazy. And
I see you.
You see me. Please help me welcome Brian Talwara.
So I am being directed over to the microphone here. Oh dear. All right, well, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. So, just the same, let's see, give yourselves a hand here for coming out to support in Lao American literature then. As I said, as I was saying to Saymoukda in the early weeks of planning this wonderful event, then, is that this is actually an interesting homecoming for me, as I realized that this month, in fact, 20 years ago, I first came to the Twin Cities then, and I was coming in after working in Washington, D.C. with some of the Southeast Asian refugee resettlement organizations out there, and I wasn't really sure where we were going at this point. The future was uncertain. I just knew that Minneapolis and St. Paul were cities where something was about to happen. And as we look back at that history, the journeys that we've taken together, it's not insignificant. And I hope that you all appreciate that and take time to remember those who were with us on the journey, those we lost, and those who are yet to come. We honor all their spirits tonight, then as we are also approaching World Refugee Week, and in fact World Refugee Day on Wednesday then. And I think the work that you see today, as I've watched Saymoukda's work and Katsy's work out there over the last 15 to 20 years, it has been a remarkable journey for them. I've been honored to have the privilege to write with them. I have any number of poems about them, and we have done a lot to counter a narrative that we faced in the early 2000s. I was writing the article for some of our colleagues in the Smithsonian recently. They were asking, well, Brian, what's the history of Lao American literature? And I had to be really frank. We had people who did not believe that there was space for the Lao American voice. We were flat out told, you should just call yourselves Asian American writers, or maybe, it's like just writers. There's no need for yourselves to identify as Lao. And thankfully, well, we were very stubborn. Saymoukda and I, 14 years ago, decided to take over the Loft space there for a reading entitled Loud and Clear, with the audacious proposal that, no, 2 Lao people and a couple of Lao American artists then could draw an audience all the way down here to the open book. And yeah, we could give you a hell of a show. So, it's like, you've all been a part of that journey, and I thank you for that. So, in the tradition of giving readings in Minneapolis, though I've been informed we don't have all night. So I'm going to read I'm going to read for you one of my newer works, called Ironies. Ironies. After 30 years of poetry, I learned at least 100 words in no less than 2 tongues, unique to our journey as refugees, to fill vacuums and bloody gaps of our disrupted histories. Recovering families, dismantling enemies, identifying the official tools of allies, bombing us for our own good, their policies of destruction and resettlement, how to win hearts and minds in diaspora. From DC to Modesto, Anchorage to the Twin Cities, walking into 1,000 classrooms, strangers to the beauty of Vientiane, Savannakhet, a heartfelt sub-ID, gathering ink storm clouds to change worlds. One poem still can't tell my whole story. Ironies. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome our next guest to the stage.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for using the mic. Yeah. Okay. So one of the people that got me, when I was a young poet, one of the many people that got me really hyped about spoken word poetry and to try it was Katsy. The other person was actually Bao, and I used to stalk him. And you know this already. I've talked about it all the time because I'm sure you're traumatized by it, and I'm trying to make peace with myself. No, but they say that, you know, if there's an artist that you admire, you should stalk them professionally, right? Because no, you know, like if you love their work, look at where they're being published. Maybe that person might want to publish your stuff or go to their readings and support them, right? So okay, wow, you're done. So Katsy was this other person that I really looked up to. The first time I saw her she was with Yellow Rage, and they did a performance on Def Poetry Jam, and I'm like, she looks Lao. I know my Lao people, I can tell, and I like Googled that, you know, I Googled Yellow Rage, and I saw, I'm like, oh my God, her name is hella Lao, and my heart just like really flew. My heart flew, and I felt touched and heard and seen, because the poem that they did was you know, addressing microaggressions and racism and all this oppressedness that women of color, Asian women experience. And I'm glad that we are sisters now, some days. Please help me welcome my sister, Katsy Villapon.
See if I have everything. Is this on? Am I on? Yeah. I am? Oh, yeah, I am. There we go. Okay. Mooks told me that the aesthetic for tonight was loud as fuck. And so I wore everything that I bought at Hmong Market, including my Thai refugee bag that if you've ever gone to like a festival and the vendors, that's what they bring everything with, because when you go over to Laos or Thailand or whatever and you buy things in bulk, which they sometimes do, they give you that bag. And so when I saw that bag, I was like, oh, I'm gonna bring all my stuff here, and that's basically how we got to here. Anyway, as Mooks mentioned, I am a part of a group called Yellow Rage. And so tonight I thought I'd start the night out doing a poem that we normally do together. Obviously, because my poetry partner Michelle's not here, the version that I show you is just my part, but hopefully you guys get the gist. And yeah, anyway, so this poem is called A Little Too Much. It's inspired by the idea that regardless of what you come out and say in terms of claiming your identity, other people will always think that you're not enough of it, you know, that you are not fitting into this box that they want you to be in. So anyway, I've also been feeling a little under the weather, so I didn't really get a chance to practice it. So it's okay, right, if I mess up, right? Yeah, okay. You guys don't even know what the original version sounds like anyway. Some of you. Anyway, so yeah, so here we go. It's called A Little Too Much. You act a little too black. Could you be more of this? Could you be less of that? You seem a little too white the way you walk and talk. Is it jesting, right? Is it spoken word, poetry, or is it rap? So you found the features on my face, figured out my race. Now you think you know my race? What do you really know when you just met me? If I don't make your first impression, then don't second guess me. Your racial profiling obsessed me, but I don't let it get the best of me. I guess you're trying to test me because you could have came correctly. You want to assess me directly, then get to know the rest of me. How insulting and disturbing. The first thing you're observing is the color of my skin and what you think you know, like you think you know everything. Like the chopstick clutch or the karate thrust, like speaking another language, that should be a must. Like on the spot translations, that would be a plus. But at the same time, it's like you're making a fuss, like my English is too fluent and my attitude's too tough. Like what you thought you and your people did, like I'm doing too much, like you're telling me I'm not Asian enough, like I give a fuck when you're not even Asian in the first place. You never were and you never will be. Why don't you listen, asshole? I still get called Americanized by Americanized because my hair and eyes are getting recognized of varying size, shapes, and colors. So American guys tell American lies to others, asking, you don't look American. How come you speak with an American accent? Act like you got some sense. Acceptance is of the essence since you can't reject my presence. Since when should I be so kind to remind you to put the shit behind you? I'm not your seeing-eye dog, you blind fool, saying my eyes are small, but it's you that can't see too much white and your history's fucking with your mental. Okay, so you know we're not Chinese. Why you still calling us Oriental? Maybe it's accidental, or maybe a joke confidential, or maybe it'll just be another accidental incident with accidentally knocked out dentures. Repercussion is consequential. Whatever, get over it. You still ain't been through what I've been through. It's 2018. I'm not getting into the midst of it. I'm not here to give you the gist of it. What you see is what you get. What you can't see, you'll never get. You act a little too black. Could you be more of this? Could you be less of that? You seem a little too white. The way you walk and talk, is it, just ain't right. Is it? So I'm nice with my words. So I fight with my words. So I find it absurd. It's the first time you've heard I'm angry and I'm Asian. Because the occasion is that you get away with saying you're all about equality when your philosophy is hypocrisy. Make oppression your obsession. Just give the impression by making suggestions. The life I live with is one full of privilege. Paint a picture of who I should be, what I should say, where I should sit. The back of the bus is calling me, but insists the front is where I fit. Then call the shots by proclaiming that what you do is called protesting and what I do is called complaining. When just yesterday, we called it the same thing. A demand for respect, maybe that's as close as it gets, but what's the point in arguing over petty shit like who's more oppressed, been more oppressed, repressed and distressed, who deserves reparation, who deserves less? You call that progress? Well, Audre Lorde said it best, there is no hierarchy to oppression. No pyramid of pain pitting people against people competing for pity. What a pity when people put a price on pain. Because no matter how you stack it up or break it down, it always comes around to the same old, same old. Somebody somewhere, someone to comfortable with somebody else. Me, I'm comfortable with who I am, but you can check for yourself. So no, I'm neither black nor white nor black, but in a gray area called Asian America, just another mix to add to your hysteria. My English will always be a little too good for you. My tongue a little too sharp for you. My pride a little too strong for you. My strength a little too deep for you. My Asian a little too American for you. So no, I can't be more of this, and no, I won't be less of that. This is what it is. Get used to it. I have a short poem because we're on a strict time limit. So this one's called Microaggressions, which I also got printed out in gold because I felt like anybody who's gone through a microaggression should get an award. So I'm selling them for $5. Cash or Venmo. Anyway, it's really hard to see when it's gold. Shit. Okay, here we go. The Asia girl in me relives these moments over and over and over again, rolling my eyes with each memory. If I give a slick side eye, haters would say they were slanted to begin with. So I have two more poems, and like Mooks, I also am doing visual poems because, I like copying off her. I think also for me, as someone who feels that my poems are supposed to represent my community, I want to also feel like it's reaching them. And, we have these issues already with art spaces and like whether or not they are accessible to refugees and immigrants, whether they're friendly and whether they do enough outreach, but also in our own communities where, through history, through trauma, we just don't prioritize art in the way that our American counterparts do. And so in thinking about me doing my poems, I also think about the statistics, right, of, who's in the audience, who's coming to see me that's loud. If I'm doing loud poems, who's in the audience is like, I totally get what you're saying, or like, am I just telling a story of my people, and then you're gonna go back and like, that was entertaining. But, like I thought about it a lot because, as poets, a lot of times we're invited by colleges and universities because it's like it's thought of as like literature and education. But like if only 14% of Lao Americans have a degree, like how many of them am I really reaching, right? And the majority of my poems are in English, and so, I think the statistic is like 60% of us are fluent, right? So that means that there's like still a percentage of people that I'm not able to reach, even though in my mind I feel like I'm telling our stories. And so the visual poems are sort of like a way to do that. The next poem I'm going to do is called Reunion, and Mooks is the only person who's seen it because I wrote it like last month. And it's about a trip that I took to Houston with my mom. And I don't know if you guys go on trips with your mom, but like I was that was my first realization that even as a 37-year-old, I have to follow her around. So anyway, that's what this poem's about. I decided to make it into a video because, I mean, while I was there, I took videos of her. And then I started talking to a friend of mine, Alex Winvo, who's actually from Houston. And he's Vietnamese, and we were thinking about like ways to collaborate. And I remember that I sent him the footage. I'm like, just do whatever. Just, make it happen. And I remember that when he sent it back, I told him that I was crying, out of hysterically crying, but also like emo. And we had this idea that we were going to do a karaoke style, and like the words would show up on the video. Obviously, because I write poetry, I can't even fucking like finish the poem, so like no words are going to show up because I know like even whatever goes on there, I'm not going to be able to like figure it out. But he was saying that that made me like Asians probably do karaoke as a way of not crying. So I was like, oh, that makes sense. Because the first time I did this poem, I cried, and it was one of those things where like even though like it was like a really good feeling poem to me, it's like as soon as like the words left my mouth, I was like, oh. Anyway. Anyway, I'll stop talking and then we'll get there. Oh, I had this like cute little intro for myself, but I guess that didn't really happen, cause like, okay, hold on. I don't even know I don't know what's. Oh, here we go. Okay, this is like, yeah. See, this is like if I was like, introducing Catsy, and I come on and I'm like, oh. Okay, that's it. Okay. Thanks. And then like this was supposed to play if like I was talking and this, it's just like a loop. It's just my name. All right, so this is the poem, and I hope it's, I didn't memorize it, so I have to read it. I'm getting old. I can't really memorize everything anymore. It's hard. I also have braces. It's really hard to do things and talk, anyway. I also, because it is a karaoke video, I have my own. Okay. Reverb? Oh, here we go. Okay. Is this it? There we go. Okay. This is a long overdue reunion. My mom is riding a plane for the first time since the one that brought us to America. To a place she's never been. I visited once, but where my one aunt has lived for 3 years, the other for 10. Can you guys hear me? Okay. In the mornings, I wake up to conversations of my mom and aunt talking about which Thai teas they drink to make their stomach smaller, after exchanging more tips on randomly used medicines they take. Then my aunt instructs how to use the remote to get the Thai news channel. My planned restaurant visits are interrupted by my cousins insisting on cooking seafood boil, crabs, and crawfish, a Houston welcoming party indeed. They've been talking since they woke up. They talk of a 4-hour drive to Dallas and another 4 hours on the way back. It's almost 11 p.m., and they're still talking. It's mostly gossip. Who married who got divorced, who has switched sexuality, who got a sex change, who had kids, and whose kids has grown up and repeated the life cycle. It is then that I realized that 50% of their conversation is dedicated to a Game of Thrones introduction for each new character they introduced in their gossip. You know Iman, who is married to Bakhtan, mother of Nang, Noi, and Lisa. Well, her eldest daughter married Suk, son of Bun. My mom and I, complete opposites. While we disagree about almost everything, I would never make it public. What, bring shame on ourselves? My aunt, who is older than my mom, Ken, has no hesitation ganging up on her. My aunts are not my real aunts, not biological sisters. Someone's dad is the brother to someone's grandfather on their mom's side. They call each other sister, which is correct. But Auntie Dang calling everyone older sister is enjoying it way too much, and she don't even drink. My cousins are not my real cousins, and the names we know each other by are not the names we go by now. A Freudian slip, a situation flip. A certain cousin has a jealous girlfriend and wants to know whose woman's name did you just say out of your mouth? All the words I know I never get to use are heard here. All the loud words my mom replaces with their American equivalent are declared in their original form. No need to ask for definitions. Mom's bad hearing means that terms are stressed, used in a sentence twice. If she don't get it, I sure did. So the karaoke machine comes out, assisted by a couple glasses of wine, and I get a front row show of live performances of songs I don't know the titles to, but their melodies kicks up memories of childhood, family gatherings. I don't know these titles, but I know these by heart. In the presence of such good company, one aunt tells us separate times she wants to ride to Dallas with us, a reminder of the socialite she used to be before the breast cancer news. They congratulate each other on their new husbands, 2 divorcees and a widow. My mom is doing a prayer chant. Satu means amen. See, I didn't do that. I didn't really practice this, so I still have more poems to go. They congratulate each other on their new husbands, 2 divorcees and a widow. They congratulate each other on the beauty of their grandchildren. The youngest hasn't started school yet. The eldest graduating college next week. The seed set for next visit. Someone's grandson is buying a house. Having survived Houston, can mom make it to Seattle? A welcoming party, a long overdue reunion. My mom's first plane ride since the one that brought us to America. A place she's only been to once, but will frequent, I don't doubt. All right. Okay, so this last poem is a poem that I collaborated with someone who's actually here from Minneapolis. His name's Noah, and he is an illustrator, animator, and it was interesting to do this project with him because he's not Lao, and he made me see all the things that I take for granted that I think like people outside of our community don't know. And so, of course, it made me make choices between whether or not I care if you don't get it, and no, I need to make sure you understand it. So anyway, this poem's called SOS in Reverse. There's my name again. It always starts with a song and dance, a friendly chant. Not too many peppers, not too much fish sauce, not too much MSG, not too much, not yet. Something safe, like a curse word. This is not a cry for help seeking the attention of somebody, anybody. Who I'm looking for knows exactly what I'm saying. SOS in reverse. If you find me, I help you. Only we can hold this space. If you don't get it, it's not for you. My calls alert you to how hard I pronounce that S on the end of Laos. Maybe if we're comfortable, I'll come out and ask you, Jamahat ban laba? How close are you to home? I might even make it official. Ceremony with Sukwon, Basi, Matkan, whatever you call it, it's all the same thing. Sabaidi wandering soul, who knows how long you've been lost? What village you come from, what tribe you rep, are you ready to greet me in native dialect? The umbrella called Asian America can't cover all of us, not when it's about to be New Year's, blessing water spilling everywhere, no matter how far the nearest temple. Our monks make it rain, all April, April, April. Only the unlucky stay dry, unsoaked on Songkran Pimay. We run in the same Lombong circles. While you were fixated on your font, I was going in deep on the yawn. Everyone in the band is our uncle, so I guess we fam now. We'll force distinct shots, brown and strong like the men who brought us up. Hennessy, Johnny Walker, or when your half-brother from your dad's side makes that Lao Bong Ya that tastes like bootleg jungle medicine. There, we'll drunk confess. How many peppers belong in a proper tamakung? Do you say doi or sagok or saua? Which refugee camp do you claim? Oh, a church sponsored you? We were aided by Jews. Trump supporter? Black Lives Matter? Me too. Which flag do you use? The three-headed elephant or the red, white, and blue? In this moment, which could go either way, I only care that you are aware and I am alive. Only we can hold this space. SOS in reverse. If you don't get it, it's okay. It's not for you. We break silence with laughters, the way outsiders can't say our names right. They don't have the umamis like our mommies, the where their voices take up space like opening a jar of bedak. I wish our kids could get excited about Kinley and Yak the way they do about wizards and orcs. Representation matters. I'm Team Wakanda forever too, but can I get a palak palam? And I explain, even if you don't listen, why I sometimes use the word Laotian. Because I know I'm Lao, and you are Khmu, and he's Tai Dang, and she's Tai Dum, and they're Hmong, but inside our home, we know that place once called Lan Sang. Cambodians from the same block, Vietnamese from the same boat. I'll save a spot on the sot for you too. SOS in reverse. If you don't get it, it's okay. Maybe I'll see you again. Maybe on Facebook. Maybe on Saturday if you tak te, maybe on Sunday if you tak bat. Oh, by the way, mom says mother, dad says set, ba says bato, and lung says satu. If you don't get it, it's okay too. When we finally get to hold this space just for us, as long as you hold out your hand for me, I'll have a white thread to wrap around your wrists. It would be a celebration, a blessing for special occasion. Is there nothing more sacred than when refugees find home in each other? Come on.
My dad used to bring me up here when I was a kid. He'd tell me stories about magical giants and wizards that lived in caves. I loved those stories. Our house isn't far from here. You see that tiny patch of water? See those 6 houses, or what's left of them? About 300 yards to the right of that's where my parents got blown up. I said, that's where my parents got blown up. Every morning, they go to the field. That morning, their shovel hit on one of the unexploded bombs. Or actually, they're called unexploded ordnances. Anyway, it went off. One of the bombs lodged inside my mom's skull. My dad's chest was in pieces. It was your fault. All of our lives we were taught, don't hang on to the past, that everything is tamada, tamada, love the Buddha, let go. And when I know that there are those bombs in the ground, all the people I've known and lost, it's beyond words what I feel. Tamada, it's the way it's supposed to be. Buddhists are sort of like masochists. We love to suffer. I met an American pilot once. He was asking for forgiveness at the temple. 30 years later, it hit him what it meant to be dropping bomb after bomb every 8 minutes, 24 hours a day for 9 years. A push-button hero, like pushing a button that drops bombs on people who had nothing to do with anything, makes you a hero. When he told us that when he pushed the button, he didn't feel nothing but a spring pushing back, thought that he was doing the right thing, I wanted to punch right through his face. Feel this? Feel this? This is what it means to kill. You're telling me even your garbage kills? You come here to tell me like some calculator that 30% of your bombs don't work the first time, so you do some carpet bombing like it's decorating? He wants forgiveness. Can you believe that? I'm Buddhist too, but I'm not like my parents. They don't get angry, so they hold no grudges, so then they have nothing to forgive. I don't give forgiveness out like that, though. That ended for me a long time ago. After the funeral, after they were cremated, one of the monks walked with me here, to the spot. It's where I dumped my parents' ashes. The head monk came with me because he thought I might have jumped off this thing. Believe me, I felt like it. I stood here, looking down at where they were killed and didn't see the point of being here anymore. A child without courage is like a night without stars. I didn't know where to go, so I was pretty much living in the slums, stealing food, money, whatever. Then, one morning, when the monks were doing their morning rounds in the village, I recognized the head monk and begged him for food. I followed them back to their temple, so I just stayed here. They remind me to be a little braver each day. When I scattered my parents' ashes, I didn't cry. I felt relieved.
Thank you. This next poem is, it was actually commissioned by the Asian Arts Initiative in Philadelphia. They were celebrating their 25th anniversary. And I was trying to figure out what I was gonna write, but one of the things that stuck with me when I was interviewing survivors and elders was realizing, well, I knew this already, but being reminded that we are so complicated as people, and even though we're all refugees, we still hold very different political views. So with that said, here's a poem called Things That Bad Asian American People Say. One, and feel free to laugh, because humor lets us navigate discomforts, right? One, I hate white people. 2, I wish I were adopted by white people because then I could have gone to Jenna's sleepover. It's true. 3, I hate black people. 4, yeah, all Asians do look alike. 5, I'm not that kind of Asian. 6, I prefer brown rice, you guys. 7, I have a boyfriend. No, he's not Asian. No, he's not white either. 8, I have a girlfriend. Yes, I'm sure I like girls. Yes, I've tried dudes. 9, we're refugees. 10, only call me by my American name. 11, what does pho taste like? 12, oh my God, I love sriracha. I put it on everything. 13, well, if Asian men weren't so short and unattractive, I'd consider dating one. 14, decorating with Buddha heads is sort of my thing too. 15, who is John Cho? 16, who is Yuri Kochiyama? 17, who is Wu-Tang Clan? I don't fuck with people who don't listen to Wu-Tang. TBH. 18, for a film made by Asian Americans starring Asian Americans, Better Luck Tomorrow was all right. 19, why are they protesting? 20, Maruchan is the best ramen brand. 21, H-Mart is overhyped. 22, fish sauce stinks. 23, can we not do family style this time? 24, why do I have to take off my shoes? 25, Mulan was whack. 26, Mom, Dad, I'm an artist. 27, I'm just American, okay? Where am I? 28. 28, no thanks, I'm vegetarian. 29, Blue Lives Matter. 30, how is Miss Saigon offensive? 31, I don't want to get dark. 32, Black Lives Matter. 33, Bruce Lee is too skinny. I know, he's fine. He's all swole in the right places. Make the uterus pop, you know. Yep. You guys didn't know you came to a comedy show too. 34, Aziz Ansari is innocent. 35, I wish we had stayed in Laos. Okay. I had a conversation with my friend Michelle Myers about this poem. When I read it at the showcase to celebrate Asian Arts Initiative's 25 year, there were some people that came up to me and said that they were very offended by the line, I hate black people, because of this country's, the world's, the way that we harm black bodies. And so we had a hard conversation about that. But then we also talked about why is it easier to laugh at some of the things. And yeah, so it's complicated. Okay, this next poem is called Mother's Voices. And this is basically a composite poem, I guess, after interviewing several kids about their moms. Mother's Voices. Mother's voice sounds like warm rain. It sounds like sticky rice steaming in a woven basket in the morning. It sounded like shoes being kicked off, left foot first, then right foot next, followed by an imbalance, a wobble. Mother's voice sounded like the sink running on a low flow at 4 a.m. to scrub the dust off of her face. Her voices sound like Pum Huang and Dolly Parton wafting through our screen door to call me back home from the park. Mother's voice sounds like old home butter tubs opening to reveal sompak or fermented badak. Mother's voice also felt too. It felt like scraps packed tightly into a Kemp's ice cream bucket at the fresh fruit cutting factory. It felt like cracking joints snuck in at the hearing aid assembly line. It felt like 25-cent popsicles melting too soon. I was taught to make the most of these moments, to savor in case I won't get to have it again. Mother's voice smelled too, like Jean Nate after bath splash, slapped and slathered on my skinny arms and legs. Her voice smelled like Dad's Chinese chop chop, an ambiguously racist stir fry concocted from misremembered ingredients listed by Martin Yan every morning through the television. If Yan can cook, so can you. Except my dad couldn't. Mother's voice smelled like depression, like that time we went to on a drive in West St. Paul. We stopped at a park. They stayed in the car while we climbed on the slides. I jumped off the swings after I saw her slam the car door. She only stopped crying long enough to direct me, "Bury me here when I am dead." In my heart, I said, "I couldn't. How could I? I'm only 7. She said, "When you're older." Mother's voice smelled like steamed buns with not enough hard-boiled eggs and too much meat. Meat is love, she says. How can there be too much love? Bite into it, savor, take your time, all the time you need, because you might not get to have it again. Okay, Josh. Your spirit will carry you. Poem by Saymoukda Vongsay. I was smashing soybeans into paste when all of the banana leaves started to shake. The ground too, like it's hungry, like a belly growling. We felt it beneath our feet. Our neighbor, his house burned so fast. I grabbed my little sister's hand. Run, run as fast as your spirit can carry you, I tell her. She knocked the pot boiling the tea and it caught fire, but I told her to keep running. We both ran from the teapot on fire. The sun kept spitting fire at our house. Run faster, I keep telling her. Okay. So in Lao language, I guess, in a lot of languages, it's very tonal. So if you say it incorrectly, you could be saying horse instead of fire when you're trying to call the fire department to come put out a horse, but you mean to come put out a fire. But they might put out a horse too, you don't know. Maybe they don't like horses. Anyway, so there's this Lao word, it's called, it's spelled, I don't know how it's spelled because I don't know how to read Lao. But I guess if it was phonetically, it would be N-A-N-G. And if you say nang, it's sit. Nang is maiden. Nang is film. Nang is skin. So it's like, don't fuck it up because you might. Okay, so this poem is called Nang, 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 Nang. Nang, sit. There's no point in walking any faster. The bombs have stopped now. Pause. Now is the time to grieve for your little boy who we buried this morning. Nang, sit. With the feelings later during your lunch break at the hearing aid factory. Sit. Nang is what you whisper into the air to his spirit. You motion to your lap, folded legs, creaky knees. You regret not having burned him instead. Then you remembered you were worried about the smoke, them seeing the smoke, and his smell. Your sweet boy smelled like monsoon wet dirt, smelled like sugarcane pulp, smelled like you wish you could still smell him as clearly. You miss him. Nang, sit. Nang, skin. Stop picking at your scabs. Do you want to scar? Rub, softer. This is the one, is all you'll have. You're lucky it didn't melt off after you tried rubbing, clawing, scratching. Nang, skin. Between B-52 airstrikes and bombies unfurling from the sky. It rained gray, sometimes orange. Mom told you that you'd be more beautiful if you were lighter. After baths when you were a baby, she would massage the arch of your nose upward, mold the cartilage to look more farang, rubbing softly. Thank you. Okay, so I had a little interview with my parents before I left this evening, and I just was like, because they keep, I think they just misremember, or they just are messing with me and fucking with me and just telling me different stories all the time, to like a puzzle, trying to make me figure it out. But it was always their escape story or their crossing the river story that changes. Sometimes it would be, the story was they hired a boat. Sometimes it was we swam across. Or sometimes it was like, oh no, I don't know how we got across. We just made it. And it was like, make up your mind. What happened? But I interviewed them again. And I try to do this regularly, talk to them about their life in Laos before the war disrupted everything. You know, their life in the refugee camps. And this time they told me that they were staying in Vientiane. And they took an old Russian pickup truck that was blue, along with other families, and they rowed that to the shore. And they hired a boat that was like very long and narrow, and they paid the boatman 1 baht of gold per person. The only person that they didn't have to pay for was my brother, who was 2 years old at the time, and my mom was actually pregnant with me, and she was 4 months pregnant with me. And so my mom said that after they paid the boatman, it took them less than an hour to get across, but they were rowing very, very quietly at night. And she said that once they got to the other side, it was still dark, so they decided to stay there on the Thai side until it became brighter, until morning. So then morning came, and they decided to go up the hill. There was this bank, and they went up the hill. And there was a Thai police vehicle. And so they were actually taken to custody, and they were put into this holding cell. At the time, you know, I guess it was illegal for refugees to be there or to cross or whatever. And they ended up staying in this holding cell. They separated my mom and my dad, but my brother got to go with my dad. But they separated them, and they were in this cell that's no bigger than, I guess, a 2-car garage, and it was just packed with people. And there were people just defecating there and not giving a shit, I mean, not caring about privacy anymore, right? And my mom was pregnant, and just, she couldn't handle it. The law said that they were supposed to hold people for 90 days, but they only stayed there for 3 days. And then after 3 days, they were transferred to Nong Khai refugee camp. And then in December, that was when I was born. So I guess that's what happened. We'll see next month when I ask them again. Okay, so this poem is called Afraid of Drowning. And I wrote it because sometimes the stories that aren't told to you, you have to imagine. And this is an older piece. Afraid of drowning. Mother said they already knew that the communist soldiers were on their way to her father's house. Because he was a provincial governor, he was one of the first on their list. They had many lists. Mother never told me more than that, stopping when the flooding of memories slowed her breathing. So the stories that I don't know, I imagine. I imagine that I was in my mother's belly when they were heading towards the river. My brother was 1.5 years. They said he was a good baby. He never cried. They didn't drug him with opium as the others had. And he mostly slept, carried by my father. Some of the kids never woke up and were buried along the way, like breadcrumbs in a fucked up fairy tale, reminding them how to find their homes again. I felt my mother's heart begin to pump fast when they reached the river. Instinctively, I reached upwards and massaged it with my translucent hands. She never learned how to swim, having been raised in the city, not like my father, who was raised in the countryside, and he swum the river before, so he wasn't afraid. He's never afraid. Even when he trekked the dirt road with his parents to ask for my mother's hand in marriage. Even when everyone on both sides said that it was a bad idea. A country bumpkin and a governor's daughter. But here they are, everyone from both sides, standing in front of the river, escaping to the same place. My mother said that some brought plastic bags to help them cross the river because they couldn't swim. Along the shore, on the Lao side, husbands inflated bags as best they could for their wives, who carried their babies on tired backs, dotted in the muddy river, black heads bobbing, black plastic bags keeping black heads above water. Sometimes people didn't make it across and got taken away by the current. But still, they held onto their bags, afraid of drowning. Some husbands gave themselves the unsympathetic river to help their wives. Some blamed themselves for not inflating the bags better. Along the shore, on the Thailand side, husbands hugged the ones that made it, while others fell on their knees with grief. My father didn't have a plastic bag. He swam my mother across, which he didn't. They took a boat. My father didn't have a plastic bag. He swam my mother across. My brother tied high on his back and me, still in her belly, massaging her heart with my hands. They said that if the sky ever angered gray, we could sleep for a few hours more, only because they didn't want to be out there too. Sweat, tears, rain. In my hut, 6 men packed shoulder to shoulder, their chests sunken, their eyes have gone. They can't even feel hope anymore. Their heavy breaths makes this hut feel like a tomb. These days, I wish for the hut to turn into a pyre, and I dream of rebirth, a different life. They said that they shot 3 men this morning because they didn't dig, move, faster. Calloused hands, brittled heart, hope on fire. Okay, that's it. Let's go to Northern Spark. Just kidding. I just want to say thank you again to Bao. You're my best friend now, because we weren't before, because I stalked you. See how I got close to you? It was maneuvering. It was strategic. But I love you, and I just want to say thank you. And I want to thank the Loft for giving me this wonderful fellowship that allowed me to do this work. And there were times last year when it was really hard after hearing the elders speak. And I was just in awe of their strength. and their willingness to share with me. But I'm like so thankful for the year with this project and for the time that I had with my community, my elders and my uncles and my aunties. I just hope they click the YouTube links. Thank you. Thank you, Katsy. Thank you, Brian. You two have been my biggest champions, and I appreciate you so much. And thank you all for coming on it's such a nice day out. Like, y'all crazy for being here, but I'm thankful. Yeah, I don't know what else to say, because I'll just keep crying. Thank you, I love you, I appreciate you.
Thank you all for coming. Can we make some noise one more time for DJ Roisin, for Katsy, who came all the way from Philly, from Brian. He didn't go that far. He didn't come from that far. And of course to Mooks. The Loft is grateful to be able to work with such talented artists in the community. We wouldn't be able to work without artists and without audience. So really, we're proud to be a part of this ecosystem. Thank you all for coming. A couple housekeeping things. I think the doors might have been automatically locked. So that means if you go out and smoke, bring a buddy with you so they can open it from the outside, okay? Other than that, please have a good night. Thank you so much, and have fun. Thank you again.